Okay. Hello, my name is Nicole G and I would like to start my speech with a quote. Thomas J. Downey, chairman of the Congressional Arts Caucus, said, "Making more cuts in arts programs is equivalent to tying Da Vinci's hands behind his back and then telling him to paint the Mona Lisa." My main claim is cutting government-funded art subsidies will harm our culture and our schools. First, I want to give you some background in case you're not sure what subsidies are and what really classifies as art. The arts are defined as a vast subdivision of culture composed of visual, literary, and performing arts. Free Dictionary states that art is imaginative, creative, and non-scientific branches of knowledge considered collectively and also studied academically. A subsidy is defined as a grant paid by government to an enterprise that benefits the public. According to the New York Times, the Bush administration's budget for 2008 called for cuts to the National Endowment for the Arts of $16.3 million. It changed from $144.7 million to $128 million. The subject of budget cuts have been in dispute, and the numbers have fluctuated from year to year. My secondary claims are: accesses to the arts are crucial for education and cultural welfare. Second, there are economic benefits from the arts that stimulate our economy. And third, without subsidies, many of the arts would fall. Let's begin with my first claim. Access to the arts are crucial for education and welfare. One support to this claim is that it's important for children to connect with their culture, and through art they are able to do so. The NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, proclaimed that we need to make our open spaces beautiful again. We must create an environment in which our youth will be encouraged to pursue the discipline and craft of the arts. We must not only support our artistic institutions, both national and local, but we must also make the arts part of our daily life so that we may become an essential part of our existence. Along with children learning their culture, all of us have an aesthetic need and an aesthetic welfare. Author Noel Carroll defined aesthetic welfare as all aesthetic levels of the experience of members of the society at a given time. Noel Carroll goes on to say that art is the most important and the best way to serve that aesthetic need for children and for everyone in the community. My second support for my first claim is that arts are an enriching subject in knowledge and experience. According to author Richard Kessler, from years of experience we know that good schools have the arts. From school trips to museums and concert performances to visual arts, music, and dance in schools. The benefits are incredibly rich and profound. So from these two examples, we realize that arts can't be cut from education because they enrich children, even though it's not statistics and math that they're memorizing. My second secondary claim is there are economic benefits from subsidized arts. A first support to that is that the arts support jobs and decrease unemployment. The National Endowment for the Arts said that the arts supply 5.7 million full-time equivalent jobs. Likewise, the second support for this claim is that the arts generate $104.2 billion in household income, $7.9 billion in local government tax revenues, $9.1 billion in state government tax revenues, $12.6 billion in federal income tax revenues. My final secondary claim is that without subsidies, many of the arts would fall. A support for this claim is that many jobs and support for the arts will diminish with budget cuts. One example I have is the Metropolitan Museum of Art decided to eliminate 74 positions, or 27% of its full-time and 9% of its part-time staff. The museum also anticipates that it will have to cut staff in its remaining departments by 10%. This is only one example of about 5 pages of different museums and art centers that had to do huge cuts to their staff. A second example is that even if private funding occurs, many local-run museums and theaters will have to close. According to author Alistair Endersby, local theaters will be forced to shut, film industries would shrink, national theater, opera, and ballet companies would disband or merge, and museums would close their doors. According to the NEA, government funding accounts for 10% of financial support for the arts. Without that, ticket prices will increase, causing less revenue in ticket sales, and the pressure on private donors will increase heavily. With all these examples, I hope you take in mind that Art is not just a picture you look at. It enriches our lives and our cultures and should be included in our education. Thank you.
I like the opening quote, even though I think there's a little hyperbole going on there, but it does set up the controversy that you're going to be talking about. You have a statement of the proposition, although it does have two parts, and I do think that you want to use a more general term to cover both of the supporting issues. There's a very solid preview of what the supporting structure is going to be at the beginning of the speech. The definition of what constitutes art is okay, although I don't think that there's really that much controversy about that. I think it's the subsidies that you need to be spending some time talking about, how substantial the subsidies are and how important they are to the existence of the programs. That, I thought, got a little bit underdeveloped. The only reference to cuts in subsidies that we get is a budget proposal from 3 years ago to cut $16 million out of a $160 million budget. So it's a 10% cut in the total amount, not the elimination that later comes on when the NEA says if we didn't have this, 10% of all the financial support that the arts gets comes from government support. But it doesn't say that we're suggesting that we eliminate that 10%. It's 10% of the 10%. And it's a 3-year-old budget proposal. I have no idea what's going on in the last 3 years on the NEA's budget. By the way, I do think it's a good example of potential bias, that the source that's going to lose the money is the one that is providing all of the information about how important it is to have that money. So there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. They're supposed to be the experts on it, but of course they're also the ones who are going to benefit from getting that money. I thought you did a good job on the internal signposting. Some of the inferences need a little bit more explanation. For example, the information about the economic impact of the arts doesn't suggest what proportion of that comes from the subsidized arts, and that's part of what your argument's about, so we need some more data on that. You did a good job citing all of your evidence, and you've got a lot of good opinion evidence on the subject. Quantification is a little bit problematic, and you have a nice presentation that you do when you are talking to us, which I think also enhances your credibility. All right, thank you very much.